So long as like Alchemy.
All right, y'all. NBA Alchemy Monday morning episode, 14, 15. I may split these up. I may change the format, man. I'm continuing to move. I really like the entirety of having like a little show, but someone brought up like, hey, man, you should just do a video of each subject. And, I don't know. I'm old school like that, but that might be the move to make in order for my channel to grow. So we'll see if I change it up here. But as of Monday morning today, I'm going to keep it the original format. Also, look for this on iTunes and Google Play as a podcast. This is kind of like a podcast just with a video over it. You know what I'm saying? So, Jimmy Butler. Now, the first thing when I heard it, I took to Twitter. I was like, yo, Jimmy on his way to Philadelphia to make that boy Markelle quit basketball, right? That was my first take was, damn, that's going to be rough on Fultz. But, several Sixer fans reached out to me and were like, yo, Fultz is out. Fultz is going to be done. They're going to trade him. I don't know. I don't know what kind of value you get for him right now. You'd be selling low. But I don't know. Maybe you're selling high. That would be crazy, right? So what is a bully? That's what I ask y'all, right? And a bully, by definition, really is someone is picking on someone weaker than them, right? They use their strength and their authority to pick on somebody weaker than them. And that's what it appeared happened in Minnesota with Towns and Wiggins. Jimmy Butler came off as a bully. And bullies kind of what makes a bully is they pick on the weak. Bullies don't bully bullies, if that makes sense, right? And that's the difference coming into Philadelphia. The difference is Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid are not weak. And Jimmy Butler is not going to be able to bully them. And so, big picture, I'll get it right out of the way. I think it works. I think it works as far as you say, oh, you're bringing in 3 type A personality alphas, and how's that going to be? I think, one, this is Joe's team. This is Joel Embiid's team. He is established himself as the most talented, even with Butler arriving. And his personality is big, and it's his team. It's his city as far as basketball goes. And so I don't think Jimmy will be able to punk either of these fools. And I think the problem was, and you know me, I'm not a Jimmy Butler fan, but to be clear, I do respect his game. I respect how hard he plays and trains. I'm not a fan of his character per se, right? But I think the problem that Butler ultimately had with Towns and Wiggins was they're soft, right? It wasn't that they missed the shot at the end of the game or someone beat them. It was how they handled it when it happened. He didn't see enough fight and enough spirit from those guys. And to be honest, I think we've all seen that. So that is fair. And that's just not going to be the case with these two in Philadelphia. Right now, Ben is a quiet dude, different type of cat Australian, but you see the fire in him, right? You see the fiery competitiveness in him. And then Joel obviously is a goon. Jimmy and him, I think, are going to be peas in a pod as far as gooning and look for them to feed off each other, right? Throughout a game. I think what else will make this thing work is at the end of games, let's be honest here, you can't really have Ben Simmons with the ball in his hands because, one, he can't shoot free throws and he's not going to shoot the ball and they're going to gap him. So I'm not saying he can't be on the floor, but from what I've seen thus far, you can't really have the ball in his hands in key possessions down the stretch. And so what that does is that puts Jimmy to the number 2 guy. And now all of a sudden you have a traditional pick and roll game with Butler and Embiid if you need that at the end of the games, Brett Brown. So I like it. I understand why Philadelphia did it. Now it's a 2-for-1 deal. You're giving up 2 starters, Dario Saric and Covington. And Covington is the better catch and shoot guy. He's a low maintenance guy who will pump the 3 and defend. But Butler, I think those nights where Philly comes out flat and the other 2 don't have it, he's a guy that will push and find it for them. And so regular season wise, I don't know if this is going to up and increase their wins this year, but I think come playoff time, and that's why Elton Brand made this move. I also think Elton Brand wanted to make a move. You know what I'm saying? Now, will they go get another shooter? Will Fultz be moved? I heard Korver's name being thrown around. What team? You have to ask yourself, what team would actually want Markelle Fultz? A Cleveland? Maybe in Atlanta, a team that has no hopes or aspirations of playing in the playoffs this season. And a lot of teams still do. There's not as many as in the past, so I don't know if they move and get another shooter. I also think that the starting lineup can be more dynamic. Now they're heavily weighing on Wilson Chandler, come on, man. Wilson Chandler, when has he been healthy for a month straight? So that's rough. Does Redick get inserted back into the starting lineup? Do they go small? We could see some dynamic lineups like you see Nick Nurse doing in Toronto, depending on the matchup. But overall, I get it. You swing for the fences, you take the risk, because what happened was Toronto and Milwaukee have leapfrogged them. Now, you could argue Toronto was already ahead of them last year. That's fine. But Milwaukee is clearly better right now. And so they had to make a move. Now, you look at it from Minnesota's perspective, it's not as much as you would have initially thought they would have got, depending on how much you like those two players. But here's the thing. I also think they did not want to trade Jimmy Butler in the West because Minnesota said over and over again, Thibodeau and the owner, that they want to make the playoffs again, right? So you trade him to another Western Conference team, not only are you taking away from your team, you're boosting an opponent or a rival, Houston or whoever the case may be. So the Clippers. So I think that was part of the motivation to send him east. And then, I do think Covington, who's on a good contract, that contract was front loaded. So I think he's a Tibbs guy, right? He's going to play. He's going to be a good soldier, and he doesn't need the ball. What it's going to do is it's going to force Towns to be more aggressive, because all those ISO situations with Butler, they're no longer there, and Covington doesn't require them. Now Sarge stretches the floor better, right? And you could play them together, because when you play, let's be honest, I like Taj Gibson, and it's cool that he's shooting corner threes, but it doesn't space the floor enough for Towns. And so Sarge will actually really space the floor beyond the three-point break, right? And you could do that, but don't overlook, if Towns is dogging it like we've seen him do so many times this season, now Tibbs has an option to kind of bench his ass for Sarge, right? I'm not saying that Sarge is as good as Towns, but there's moments where he is, just because of Towns' motor and the way he's cut, right? So I don't think Minnesota was going to make the playoffs either way. I think it's just a sidestep. They had to get him out of there, and it's going to allow Towns to hopefully take control of this franchise, but we'll see. It was a sidestep move, but for Philadelphia, it's exciting. I like it. All that said, though, I don't think they're better than Milwaukee. I don't think they're better than Toronto. I think maybe it's put them ahead of Boston. That might be a little crazy to say, but I don't think it's made them the favorites in the East like people are saying. But I like the move, and y'all know how I feel about Jimmy. But I think these guys are going to mesh in the sense of, now we may see them have, some miscommunications, and they're going to have to work it out schematically. As basketball players, they don't totally fit, right? But I just think that they have strong enough personalities where Butler wants some pushback, and he didn't get pushback from Towns and Wiggins, and he's going to get pushback. So I think that they will feed off each other and compete at a high level. So I like the move. All right, let's talk a little Warriors. Let's talk a little Warriors here. Saturday night, the Nets coming to town. Nets just beating Denver. Now, no Steph Curry, no Draymond Green, no Sean Livingston, and Quinn Cook stepped up and looked like a starting point guard. Now, don't get it twisted here. I'm not saying he's a starting point guard, but on that night, he looked very nice. He started off like 6 of 6, 7 of 7, and the Nets employed the same strategy the Bucks did, because it's a copycat league, we know that, where the big was dropping and they were trying to have their guard, D'Angelo Russell, fight over the screen and challenge from behind and recover, and it wasn't working. One, because D'Angelo Russell, the Nets just don't have the personnel to do that. Their guards can't do that. And then Quinn Cook, that's his ideal scenario, to shoot right off a screen, particularly going right, and he did it to start 6 of 6, 7 of 7. But what I was more impressed with Quinn Cook was, one, his defense. He's fighting over and through and switching better on screens, right? And then he showed a willingness to actually give the ball up. My biggest knock on Quinn Cook is, and I haven't publicized it much because of what he is. Being a third or fourth guard, he kind of comes in and his job is to shoot the ball, but he misses a lot of passes. He misses a lot of guys open in part because he is a scorer. That's what he does. But he showed a willingness to give up the ball. He got some guys some baskets. I thought that was impressive. And then KD, I had brought this up to my patron audience. When you're Kevin Durant and it's November, you're playing the Nets, he kind of has to play the game within the game to keep himself entertained. So you saw him go for 11 assists. And, he was toying with cats out there, right? And I think that he was in distributing mode. So he was a little bit out of rhythm, but it didn't matter. He was still like 9 of 15, 28 and 11. Crazy numbers. I thought the Nets rolled over quicker than you have seen in the past, in part because they were on a back end of a back-to-back. They had kind of stole one in Denver. And so I think that Kenny Atkinson and the Nets kind of rolled over quicker. There wasn't like a late game push that I think maybe most of us were expecting. But I think if you're a Nets fan, I think that's a good thing, because I think it speaks to them having different goals this year, right? Last season, it was kind of like they treated every game like a championship game. Let's just try to win it. And now they kind of have aspirations at bigger things. So they took the L earlier on and moved on. Now, the Warriors play the Clippers tonight in Staples Center, I believe. I think it's down there. And I don't know if those of you that have been paying attention, but this Clippers team has some dogs, man. Like they're going to knock somebody out of this playoff race. I really believe that in the West because they're about as deep as it gets. But what I like about them is like I said, they've got dogs. Pat Beverly, Avery Bradley, Montrezl Harrell, the kid Shai Gilchrist. I'm gonna have to learn his name. I'm gonna have to hit him with an acronym. Shai Gilchrist, right? And Boban's in there doing crazy stuff, and you can tell Doc really is enjoying himself, coaching guys that'll listen, guys without egos, guys that just want to play basketball. And I know it's a different person, it's a different roster, it's really a whole different look. But Doc knows how the Warriors have dominated the Clippers. And so I think they're going to have a little extra juice, obviously playing the champs, and then no Steph, no Draymond. Again, I think the Warriors are going to catch an L tonight, but it'll be a fun one. It'll be interesting. It's more exciting almost as a Warrior fan when there's a threat of a loss, right? I don't know. I don't know if I'm wrong, but I'll break that down on Patreon tomorrow. Now, I hate to be the Grinch. I hate to be the Grinch this time of the year, man. But Laker fans, what happened last night was disgusting. Right? What happened, I hate to poo-poo on your little win streak here, but what happened last night was disgusting. Right? The Atlanta Hawks come into Staples Center. Trae Young's fun to watch, but come on, man. They're designed to lose. They are literally tanking. And it comes down, LeBron misses the free throws. Tyson Chandler, that's fine, bro. Pump your fist, you got the block. But the way LeBron ran over to him like he finally found his dad, in November against the Hawks, true Laker fans, you know what time it is. That shit was disgusting. You can't be celebrating like that in November over beating the Hawks, man. I think so. Despite this little win streak from the Lakers, I think that was very telling, man. And it is what it is. I hate to kill the fun, but that shit was very telling. And yes, they've sewn up the defense a little bit. They're switching a little less. Tyson Chandler has made a huge difference. So shout out to James Jones for hooking LeBron up and whatever that story may be. But I will caution one thing about Tyson. He is an OG now, right? He does not need to go diving into the stands or hitting the floor, right? Leave that for the youngsters. Leave that for Lonzo and Hart and those boys. You need to stay upright, Tyson. You have nothing. Don't prove that you still got it. Just man the middle, rotate, and be a big man. Don't hit the floor because they're going to need you, man. But, they look incrementally better, but they're beating teams they should have beat. Sacramento, I will cover y'all, Kings fans. I peeped the game. But I need to see more. I don't want to prejudge. I will say at a quick glance against the Lakers Kings, I didn't like Jaeger's offense. I don't like that too high post stuff. I don't like the offense that much. I like the personnel. I like the young players. But yeah, I thought that was funny. So the last thing that I want to cover, let me get a little sip here, was that Denver-Milwaukee game. Because that's the game that I tuned in and watched every minute of. Two teams on the up and up. And I guess what I'm most fascinated with was what I keep bringing up is this Milwaukee defensive strategy from Budenholzer. Bud Budenholzer. I'm going to get his name. Budenholzer. Anyway, the guards fighting over screens. Lopez able to stay on the floor. Lopez, basically all he has to do is stand at the three-point line and shoot threes. He ain't got to do shit else. Because he doesn't have to play defense in this scheme, really. He just has to backpedal and put his hands up. And it's been impressive. It threw the Warriors off. Denver, it made their guards feel weird right now. It's an interesting strategy. You have to have the personnel for it. They're very long. And the other thing is like Giannis is so long, he can recover out and challenge shots. Middleton, very long. So they have the personnel to do it. The one thing I question about it is the guards are expending so much energy. Brogdon, DiVincenzo, Bledsoe, that come May, will it look the same? Right now it's November and they have the energy and the legs to do it. Come May, April, will they be able to fight and recover from behind in this strategy as well? Denver. Murray and Harris, like the only way to gain experience is to take your lumps, right? You can't gain experience by not going through and experiencing it. And now I'm getting dumb with the philosophies, but you see what I'm saying. And I think this is that year. As good as they've looked, you can see towards the end of games, they're just not quite disciplined enough. They don't have experience. They're they're not trustworthy with the ball up and down, the pace, and you saw some mistakes towards the end of the game. And I question Murray's motor a little bit, right? There was that inbound steal at the end of the game, and then Murray just stood and watched, right? Harris has a motor, but Murray's motor is a little bit iffy despite all his skills and talent. But I just think this is clearly the year where Denver, they're going to make a playoff run, but it's going to be the year where it's like, oh, we experienced it. You know what I'm saying? They're happy to be there type of thing. And the only way, again, to gain it is to go through it. And so I'm impressed with Denver. And I am, like, don't get me wrong. If Golden State sees Denver in a playoff series, there should be a healthy amount of fear with the elevation and the way that they can play. Millsap was beast. He looks better. I thought he had really lost a step, but he looked good. And he was balling. He was really taking advantage of every matchup and kept him in the game. But right now, Milwaukee's the better team, and they prevailed at the end. Lopez with the threes. Chris Middleton I think he must be the most difficult shot maker in the league. The shots he makes on a consistent basis are like the most difficult shots that I've seen. He's a tough shot maker, and he's the best one in the league at it right now. But yeah, the Bucks are impressive, man, and they, I think they came west and they did what they needed to do. That Clipper game was tough, though. The other afternoon, Bledsoe, I didn't like him taking that shot at the end. I don't like Bledsoe with the ball in his hands at the end. Bucks fans, let me know what you think. I think Brogdon's a little more trustworthy at the end of games, and you got to run some sort of dribble handoff action for Giannis at the end of the game. Just let him move downhill and let whatever happens. That's my opinion. And then if he kicks for three, he kicks for a three. But I'll be back with another episode, a patron breakdown for this Clippers matchup tomorrow, and then an episode of this. Now, if y'all want to listen to this is kind of a podcast format, like I mentioned. Look for this episode on iTunes. So if you want to listen while you're driving or working out or whatever, hit that up. Hit the like, share, and subscribe. I'm out, y'all.
I've been winning so long, it's like Alchemy.